When people debate the greatest Mortal Kombat games of all time, a few names come up. Mortal Kombat Deception, MK9, even Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. But every single time, MKX is a game that over the years has earned more and more and more respect from the community. At launch, some fans weren't sure about the darker art style and the new generation of characters or maybe some of the gameplay changes, but today, people look back on MKX as one of the franchise's greatest games and highest points, and to be honest, I understand completely why. Because MKX didn't just follow the success of MK9, it proved that Mortal Kombat could evolve without losing what made it special. And today, I want to look back on why Mortal Kombat X still matters and why so many fans continue to hold it at such a high regard. But if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames. We do anything gaming news, reviews, playthroughs, etc. and we do it in a chill way with no over editing BS. So if you enjoy that style of content, be sure to hit that sub button and join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Anyways, let's get back to the video. So one thing people don't realize is that MKX had the hardest job ever. Following MK9 was not going to be an easy task because MK9 sort of revived the franchise almost from death. It brought back classic characters, it retold the original trilogy, and it reminded everyone why they loved Mortal Kombat in the first place. But you know, this means that going forward, MKX couldn't just rely on nostalgia anymore. It had to move the series forward, and that's an incredibly difficult position for any sequel in a franchise. But instead of playing it safe, NetherRealm took extreme risks, and that's exactly why I think MKX stands out. And the biggest thing above them all is the gameplay. The gameplay still holds up. It took everything people loved about MK9 and it made it better because, you know, MKX is fast, it's aggressive, it's explosive, every match feels dangerous, the run mechanic constantly pushes players forward, pressure is relentless, and combos are very satisfying, and every character feels capable of creating exciting moments. And even today, many competitive players still consider MKX one of the best playing Mortal Kombat games ever made, and that's a huge compliment considering how much the series has changed since then. And you could even look at tournament play. A lot of tournaments, like maybe Champions of the Realms, they're going back to MKX because, you know, MK1 and MK11, that gameplay is just boring to watch compared to maybe MK9 and MKX. MKX's gameplay was fun to view too. Everybody loved watching it. Everybody doesn't like watching MK11 and MK1 because they think it's sort of boring after a while. MKX took risks by making it faster, by changing what MK9 did for the better and making it just better in all ways. And of course it has its downsides, but you know, people in general love it and love it a lot. And it also took risks with its roster, and that's one thing I respect about MKX because it wasn't afraid to introduce new faces. Because you know, like other Mortal Kombat games, it's like they introduce maybe like one or two new characters, the rest are just classic legacy characters, not even 3D air characters. This one introduced like a whole new generation. You have characters like Cassie Cage, Takeda, Jackie Briggs, Kung Jin, Kotal Khan, Devora, and my personal favorite, Aaron Black, and even some other characters like Ferrator that people want them to bring back. Some became fan favorites almost immediately, and maybe others were more divisive, but regardless of how you feel about them, NRS wasn't simply relying on nostalgia. They were trying to build a future of Mortal Kombat, and I think the series needed that. And it also introduced something called variations, and they made every character sort of feel different in their own way, because the variation system, instead of every player using the exact same version of a character, each fighter had multiple playstyles. Scorpion didn't just play one way, neither did Sub-Zero or Kitana or Liu Kang or anyone else in the roster. It added replayability. One variation could play completely different than another variation, so it's like every character has like 3 versions of their moveset in one. Obviously you still have like the same strings, but the special moves and maybe some special strings will be unique to certain variations. It encouraged experimentation and it made learning matchups even more interesting. Even though later games moved away from this system, many fans still miss it today. Some people are a bit iffy on it, but I wouldn't mind if it came back. And one thing that I love about X, and this is something that goes back to the 3D era, was their darker style. And I think MKX had the unforgettable atmosphere. It was darker, it was more violent, more intimidating. Even the menus, the music, the stages, everything had this gritty atmosphere that fit Mortal Kombat perfectly. Outworld actually felt dangerous, the Netherrealm felt terrifying, even character intros carried, you know, a certain intensity behind them. It's a tone that many fans still prefer over the later, more vibrant entries. And going back to the characters, I just want to say that it gave us some of the best new characters in recent memory, because creating memorable characters decades into a franchise isn't easy, because these new characters, they're competing with legacy greats like Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Sonya, Cabal, Kano, all those characters. Players are always going to ask, okay, why are we having this new character instead of maybe like Kano or Sonya or Cabal or a Striker or any legacy character that they'd rather have into the game? But MKX managed to make these new characters and make them last. Despite, you know, the initial hate that the Kombat kids got, people still want them back. Takeda quickly became one of the most requested returning characters, and he was even DLC in MK1. That's how requested he was. And even Aaron Black, he developed a huge following. People want him back. Kodo Khan became one of the franchise's most recognizable modern leaders, and even Devora, and love or hate her, she left a lasting impression. And even lesser characters like maybe Ferrator, people still want him back, and they even added Farah as a cameo in MK1 too. That's a sign of strong character design, and people still talk about all these characters years later. But obviously MKX isn't perfect. There were huge balancing issues, and some players just still don't like the combat. They prefer more of a beginner friendly type of combat that MK11 or MK1 might have, and some people didn't like the, you know, the run mechanic, and just how a lot of things were just broken, like Unbreakable Tremor. Is that what it was called? Unbreakable Tremor, where you could just flex and gain muscles, right? And then you could hit him and he won't even be staggered or anything, right? There were a lot of jank in the game, a lot of broken stuff. I think like if you watch tournaments, you just see the same meta characters over and over and over again, so much that where if you see another character, you're immediately rooting for them because they are the underdog, no matter who's playing them, because that's how broken, you know, the top tier characters were. So I know the online factor was a bit broken and not balanced, but regardless, I still think it's a very fun game, and it still one-ups, you know, MK11 and MK1 in most aspects when it comes to like online play and just funness factor. You know, it's very fun to play. And another thing is, people just didn't like the story mode too. They said that, you know, they didn't like how Cassie Cage and the Kombat kids were the spotlight. I understand what they were trying to do, build the future of Mortal Kombat. However, I agree, they could have been written 10 times better, and I feel like the MKX story, it was one of the weaker story modes in recent entries. You know, I think it's less than MK1. I'd rather have MK1 story than MKX. That's my hot take. But, you know, let's get to the core of this video. What's its legacy today? Why does MKX still matter? It's because it proved that Mortal Kombat wasn't stuck in the past. It showed that the series could introduce new characters, experiment with gameplay, tell new stories, and still feel like Mortal Kombat. And that's incredibly difficult to accomplish. Many franchises lose their identity when they evolve. MKX didn't. It expanded the universe while staying true to its roots, and that's why so many fans continue to revisit it, including myself. If I had to choose a modern Mortal Kombat game to play for the rest of my life, I would play MKX. Obviously, my favorite Mortal Kombat game is Mortal Kombat Deception, so I'd rather play that over MKX, but MKX I think has the best gameplay. And you know, that's one thing I've noticed over the last few years, is how often people compare newer Mortal Kombat games to MKX. Whenever someone talks about gameplay, MKX comes up. Whenever someone discusses maybe the competitive scene of Mortal Kombat, even MKX comes up. Whenever players say they miss the faster pace, they're usually talking about MKX. And that's the mark of a game that left a lasting impact. It sort of became like a reference point, not because it was perfect, you know, every Mortal Kombat game has flaws, but because it offered an experience that feels unique, and even to today's standards. There isn't really another Mortal Kombat game that plays quite like MKX, and I think that's exactly why its reputation has only grown stronger and stronger with time. So looking back, you know, MKX wasn't just a worthy sequel to MK9, it became one of the defining games in the entire franchise. It introduced tons of unforgettable characters, delivered unique gameplay, and took a lot of risks. And it proved that Mortal Kombat could continue evolving without forgetting where it came from. And that's why MKX still matters in my opinion. Not because it tried to recreate the past or anything like that, but it had the confidence to build the future. And on top of all that, it probably was the last real good MK game, so of course many people will go back to it. But now, I want to hear from you guys. Do you think MKX is the greatest Mortal Kombat game ever made, or do you still prefer another entry in the series? Let me know in the comments down below. But if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Thank you guys for watching. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Yeah!